Welcome back. In the last video, we mocked up this large bookcase, principally so that I could get dimensions and data locations for fabricating the back. But I can't stress enough how important it is, regardless of the size of project, to do a mock-up or dry assembly before ever getting the glue out. You'll find if there are any potential issues, that way you can correct those before you go to the glue up. Obviously, once the glue's all spread out, it's a bad time to find a piece doesn't fit or you don't have the clamp you need to get things put together. Now in my case, there were a couple of issues that I ran across during the mock assembly. First, I used a scrap piece of plywood to form a sort of work surface on top of my I-beam support bases. And that was good, except this scrap piece of plywood is a little bit too wide. And as a consequence, to get a clamp onto the side or the top up here, it has to run at an angle, and that's really not an ideal situation. Secondly, because of the width of the plywood, it's coming out almost to the edge of the work support bases, and that's not real conducive for attaching clamps either. And last but not least, although I can reach the top, it's really not ideal. I'd like to have it a little lower so that I can get a up close and personal look at these joints to make sure that they're fully closed when I do the final glue up. So I'm going to make some changes to this setup. Let me show you how I'm going to do that. Alright, to get this set up better for the actual glue up, the first thing that I want to do is disassemble my mock assembly. And you want to be pretty careful doing that, and most importantly, you want to make sure that all of the markings that you've put are still there and that you know which piece goes exactly where when you're ready for your glue up. So I'm going to start disassembling this, and I'm going to switch you over right now to a little bit of a bird's eye view so you can kind of see how this process goes. And we want to be pretty careful when we take this apart. Because we don't want anything unexpected to happen. Unexpected is just not good. Here comes the part where I get to see how strong I am. There we go. All the more reason I'd like to have this a little bit lower. Okay. That was the worst part. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these shelves out a little bit at a time. While I'm doing that, I'm making sure that all of my marks are still legible so that I'll be able to reassemble this in the correct order. Okay, I found one piece that wasn't marked, or at least it wasn't marked well. Now I'm going to go ahead and get the clamps off and set aside on this bottom side piece. because I want to take this piece of plywood that's underneath here and trim it down a little bit and get it to a size that's better for what I'm trying to accomplish. After disassembling the mock-up assembly of the large bookcase, I took the piece of plywood I had used as a support under the mock-up assembly and I trimmed it down to size. I made it the same width and length as one of the bookshelf sides, so there'll be no impediment whatsoever to clamping the assembly together. I also decided to move the entire assembly to the other side of my shop. I think I'll have just about as much room to work on it over here, and quite frankly, I need a little space to get in and out of the door because I'm expecting a new piece of equipment. Well, more about that later. Okay, the I-beam work support bases can be positioned any one of three ways. Now, this particular position is at its tallest, and you can also just simply turn it this way, and this is what I call the medium height, and this is the height I used in the mock-up assembly. And if you turn it this way, it's at its lowest height, and that's what I'm going to use this time around. Now, I had thought about turning it this way and running the plywood across, but I still needed a little bit more space in here to be able to get clamps on. So if I just turn it this way, there'll be plenty of space. Let's take a look at how that's going to work. Just like that. I'll get these lined up a little bit better and make sure everything is perfectly level. But this is going to give me plenty of room here to clamp my assembly together, both on the sides and on the end. So we're pretty close to a glue up. Ready for the glue up? Well, I am, I think. So the board, the side piece of the bookshelf, is clamped down to the support board, which is on top of my work supports. This is a scrap of one of the shelves. I'm going to set that in the dado for a second, and we're going to use that just to line up one of these corner support brackets, just to make sure we get it in approximately the right position. Tighten that down real good. And now I'm going to put some glue in the dado. Get to where I can see up close here. And I'm going to use a little brush here to make sure I get glue right into the corners of the dado. I want to make sure I've got this covered really good. And we're going to go all the way right to this front edge out here. But we're going to stay short of the area back here where the back is going to get glued on. I'm going to put just a little bit more down here. Make sure not to starve these joints. And these will be easy to clean if there's any squeeze out. And there will be. There will be some. Okay. Now, making sure I keep my orientation, my numbers. I've got each of these shelves numbered, and it corresponds to the number on the side panel. And that gives me my orientation. And then what I want to do is make sure I've got it exactly flush with the front corner. And I can use my same little scrap of wood to assure that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clamp this shelf onto this little bracket. And it should be standing straight and tall. Now, it is fully seated in the dado, but we want to make absolutely certain that it stays seated, so we're going to do a couple of things here. I'm going to put another corner bracket right over here. A little squeeze out right there, get rid of. There we go. Put another corner bracket right there. I'm going to try to do this backwards. Normally I'd go around to the other side. Okay. Alright, now that's not going anywhere, but I want to make sure we have absolute contact in the bottom of the dado. And to do that, let's move this up this way. Put this clamp up here. Shorten it one notch here. And we'll put a little pressure here on the top. And that's just gonna make sure we've got our shelf fully seated in the dado. I'm going to do the same thing over here. And there we go. All right, we're done with the glue up. Not really, but rather than try to do all of this at one time, I'm going to do one shelf at a time. Get it in here, solid, glued in, and set. And once all the shelves are in, then I'll glue in the top. And that one will be a little bit of a panicky operation, but it'll be a whole lot easier having all these pieces glued in to the side to start with. So I'm going to give that a little bit of time to set up, and we'll do the next one. I'm up here on a little step stool so that I can see the ends of these shelves that have been glued in place into the side piece. Now, gluing those shelves in one at a time was a pretty methodical and laid-back process. That went pretty well. But gluing the other side on is going to be a little bit more of a scramble. I've got 5 shelves, 5 dados that need to be matched up. The shelves need to be nested into the dados, and the whole thing needs to be clamped down level and flush. So I've got a plan, and here's what it is. First of all, I've left the L brackets attached to each of the shelves just to hold them a little bit more steady as I'm gluing on the other side. Secondly, I'm going to put the glue into the dados on the side piece first, and I'm going to put that in kind of thin, brush it in, And I'm going to let that sit while I put a little glue on the ends of these shelves. And the reason for that is because when I turn that big side piece up, dado down to put up here, I don't want the glue running out and running down these shelves. So hopefully that little bit of time for the glue to gel up will kind of help alleviate that. The other thing that occurred in the time intervening between putting these together is the side piece developed a little bit of a bow across its width. And the way it's oriented is that if you set the side piece up here, the center is raised up just a little bit. Now it's not a serious thing because I can actually just take my fingers and push it down and get it flush. However, when I'm clamping this, I can clamp this side and I can clamp this side, but there's really no way to get to the center and clamp down and get that little bit of bow out. I thought about using weights, but that's a little cumbersome up here with everything else that's going on. So what I decided to do was to make some custom cauls to use as clamping cauls across the side piece. And what this is just a 2x4 that I jointed along one edge, and then I planed it so that there's a very slight raised camber in the middle. And if you looked at this, it actually rocks just a little bit because this is raised right here and tapers down. It's not much, but it's just enough so that when I put this on top of the side piece, clamp this side and clamp this side, the middle will push down really hard and get that nice and flush. If you want to see how I made these cauls, there is an article and photographs in the January 2017 edition of Highland Woodworking's Wood News Online. You can just go to their website and click on the tab at the top that says Newsletter, and it'll take you to all of their past newsletters, and you can find the article real easy. And by the way, if you don't subscribe to that newsletter, you should. It's free, and it comes out every month, and most months I've got an article in there, so you should be reading that. Anyway, I think we're pretty much ready to go with the glue up, so let's get started. All right, now you really want to brush the glue into these dados, and principally that's to make sure that you get it up on the side of the dados. So we'll get this finished up. And now what I want to do is I just want to put a very light little coating of glue on the ends of each of these shelves. And what that's going to do is kind of make up for the fact that I put the glue in pretty thin inside the dados. All right, and there we go. I've just got a little bit of glue to clean up. Get a little damp paper towel and wipe that down. We're good to go. Okay, with the side piece up here on top glued onto the shelves, I was then able to go ahead and glue in the first half of the back. And basically the procedure is exactly the same. I brushed glue into the dados, then I set it into place and clamped it as best I could around the perimeter But to make sure I drew the back up tight to the shelves, I pushed it in and shot in some 18 gauge brad nails, 1.25 inches long, in along each shelf. And that made it hold good until the glue set up. Now all I have to do is glue in the second half of the back. After that's done, I can glue in the top shelf, which is just set into rabbets, so that'll be real straightforward. Now in the next video, we're going to build a reinforcement base here for the bottom of the bookshelf, and that's going to also help serve as a front support here for the face frame. And we're going to get started on building the face frame. One of the things the face frame will do will be to provide some additional sag support for these big shelves, just like the dados in the back. So be sure to come back for the next video. I look forward to seeing you, and thank you so much for watching this one. Middle of that side to draw out that